all these developments and changes, whether they, whether banks wanted or not, have obviously some cost associated with them. What would you say is the exact cost of transforming your business?
Well, I think in some cases we're getting to a point on the regulations where there's so many of them, it's not even a question of cost. It's a question of either changing the business model or looking at the actual business itself.
I see. What would be some business measures, for instance, that you would suggest looking at? Would it be return on equity, for instance?
Well, I think if you look at the return on equity question, it's very interesting. I don't think I don't think, for example, it's just about the P&L anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the balance sheet. The big thing about the regulations is about capital and how capital is going to be used, and then apart from capital, then how collateral is going to be used, because it's very similar. There are far more consequences in terms of getting it wrong now with capital and with collateral, and that's why it's also about looking at the efficiency of doing an awful lot of things. If you look at, for example, automation has been about in a lot of cases mimicking an existing process and doing it in the same way. Now, because the balance sheet is so critical, and because collateral and the consequences for collateral moving around the place is so critical, how you see that,
Mm-hmm.
how you minimize the need for it, is actually going to change a lot of the post-trade sector.
Mm-hmm. And one thing when it comes to transformation is obviously also the silos, so individual silos within businesses. What would you say are some efficient ways to break up these silos and make them automated?
Well, I think if you look at the silos, we feel that we're now getting to a stage of industrialization of the post-trade. Well, some of the biggest players who have had maybe 3 different businesses at a high level within their bank, and then they may have 7 or 8 different geographies,
Mm-hmm.
have ended up with 3 times 8, which is maybe 24 different operating units to do exactly the same piece of post-trade. Industrialization means putting all of that in one place.
How long would something like that take?
If you look at it this way, 4 of the top 5 global custodians use our applications globally, where in a lot of cases they will have rolled it out over a period of time to solve problems everywhere, where
Mm-hmm.
over a period of time they're moving maybe 16 remote operation centers into one at least global application, and then they can choose how they can use it. We have done that in the best case in about 15 months, but it can take anything between 15 months to 3 years. These are not just IT problems, these are also problems with actually changing the business, making the business fit for purpose for a very different regulatory environment. And thirdly, it's about future-proofing the business. Mm-hmm. It's really building in likely changes that are going to happen either on the regulatory side or also on the tax side, which is another very important component to it.
I see. So besides this trend, do you see any other developments in the market taking place in the sector?
Well, as we said, we see centralized hubs, mm-hmm. and industrialization being very important. A lot of people talk about big data. We think what's very important is the quality of data and data analytics. So it's the accuracy, global accuracy and timeliness of data. And then it's when you have global and accurate and timely information, it's then about being able to put pieces of it together so that very quickly you can start seeing some of the compounded consequences that are happening with multiple regulations, particularly in different parts of the world.
And when it comes to technology in particular, what kind of technologies do you see sort of fit for purpose in this area? You know, could it be, for instance, cloud computing or anything else?
Well, if you look, for example, at cloud computing is lending itself very nicely to industrialization, where with industrialization, two things are happening. What cloud computing allows a lot of market participants do is that it allows them really remotely work in, say, 30 different locations and aggregate that into one point. It's got some very nice cost of ownership applications with it, but also the third part of it is with industrialization, there are participants who are going to look at this as their core business. There are participants who want to outsource either the technology to organizations like us because we run these type of utilities, or they will want somebody to take over the whole BPO or outsource this area to again, most of our clients who are global participants in this space. And again, the cloud technologies is a key enabler for this happening.
John, to wrap up our conversation today, we talked about big data, we talked about the impending regulation and its compound impact on everything. You know, where do you see the industry going? What's your outlook for it?
Well, I think there are lots of opportunities going to be presented. I think if you look at the smart participants and if you look at the smart banks, they're really moving into data analytics and having very high standards of analytics so that they can unravel two things. They can make sense of the post-trade data, because post-trade data unlocks the secret of the entire securities marketplace. And secondly, it will put them in a very strong position for the compounding effects that you're going to have from multiple regulations. And third and last thing that it's going to enable them to do is it's going to enable them to seek out opportunities from this environment. So, you know, for the smarter participants, there's opportunities here in terms of what's happening in the marketplace.
And you say smart, but I guess my understanding is that, you know, banks have to do this or they just risk losing out. Am I interpreting this right?
Well, it's not going to be optional. They have to comply. But there's two things. There's the banks that are just looking at compliance in terms of a tick box, in terms of a task list. Then there are the organizations that are looking at their entire data and how they can actually use this, first of all, to be compliant. Secondly, to future-proof this compliance, because these regulations, none of them are going to be static. And thirdly, it's actually to seek out opportunities from actually having excellent, and by excellent I mean accurate and timely information that they can piece together and do very useful things with.
Thank you very much, John. Thanks for coming today.